to the Reclaimed Heirloom. My name's Christina, and I want to show you how I transformed this dresser using decorative finishes with chalk paint. I'm going to walk you through the supplies and the techniques in which I'm going to use. Starting with a thick oval brush, a spray water bottle, and I'm going to be using Sloan's Chateau Gray. I highly recommend starting with a moist paintbrush. Chalk paint is super thick, and this will really help move your chalk paint around, as well as you'll use a lot less paint. Because this dresser has been sanded down, it's completely raw and the wood is extremely dry. So I'm going to have to use that water bottle quite frequently. I do not want it to be saturated with water, I want it to be moistened frequently. You definitely want to create random brush strokes because I'd like to build up some texture, and I'm going to explain to you why. Because chalk paint is so thick, you generally only need one good solid coat, but that also depends on the surface that you're painting. You may need two, as well as the color tone you're applying. Because the next technique I'm going to be doing is adding more color tones, I will be adding in basically a second coat while we're doing that. Again, I like to do a lot of cross hatching and a lot of random brush strokes so I can create up a really good texture. And again, I'm going to show you exactly why this is beneficial. So now that we've got our first base coat on, I'm now going to be using olive, as well as I'm going to use Amsterdam green, which is kind of a forest green. I'll need two brushes, and I'm going to use chippy palm brushes. I find these are absolutely fantastic for blending chalk paints with. After we're done the blending, we're actually going to also create a color wash with Country Gray. And there's a few really cool tips and tricks I want to show you with the color wash to really create an old world vintage look. I like to use a color wash of 50% water and 50% paint. Moving into our second coat, I'm just adding a little bit more of that Chateau Gray and building up a little bit more texture. Now I'm going to use Amsterdam green, and I'm just going to apply it in random. No specific pattern of any kind. What I'd like to be doing is just creating high and low lights with the three different color tones of green. Again, extremely important, you always want to frequently mist with water. Again, do not saturate, just mist. This will help glide and allow your paint to move into each other. And I'm literally just feathering with that chippy palm brush. I really want those highlights and lowlights with the different color green tones to look very authentic. So I really want it to be random. So I'm just really truly allowing the paint to move into the spots it wants to. I'm just feathering it wherever it's going to go. There's no specific pattern I'm going by. And again, really important, light mists, very consistent, but never oversaturate. This part of the chalk painting is extremely therapeutic, and never feel rushed. It can go along quite quickly, but stop whenever you want. I always blend in sections. Mostly, have fun with the paint. Just go around in random and play with it and create those highlights and lowlights. Add a little bit more. You can even take it away if you feel you've added too much with your base color. Again, really important to always consistently mist, but never oversaturate. And as you can see, I'm literally feathering, and my tactile touch from the bristles to the actual drawer or anywhere on the project is actually quite light. Sometimes people are making a mistake where they're pushing the bristles into the surface area they're painting too hard, and this is where the paint pushes the wrong way. So sometimes it's really important to watch how hard you're actually using your brush. So just constantly remind yourself, just feather it, just feathering. That's all you're doing is just feathering. It's very soothing. Chalk paint is very, how can I explain this? It's kind of a different shade when it's wet versus when it's dry. So I always recommend to kind of stand back, take a look at what you've got going, and once everything is completely dry, never fear. If there's something that you're not really liking, you can always go back, spray mist with your water, and add in some more highlights and lowlights. It's not a problem. And that's why it's really nice to work in the smaller sections as well. So maybe it's just a small area you want to fix. I'm going to go ahead and let all of this blending dry, and that varies depending on your room temperature, but generally I try to give it a couple of hours. Overnight is best, but I always get a little impatient and want to get on. Moving on to our next technique, which will be the color wash with that country gray. Again, 50% paint, 50% water, and I've got wet towels and dry towels. You don't have to have dry towels, but I like to have them in case I actually put too much of the color wash down and it gets a little drippy. I try to be very conscious that I use the side of the jar or whatever container I'm using with my color wash, so that way I'm kind of removing some of the excess moisture. I prefer to use the moist towels. You can use cloths, cotton, anything that you want. Literally, it's not that big of a deal as long as it's lint free, and I just prefer to use the shop towels. But the reason I like to use the moist towels is because I do not really actually want to remove the color from the color wash, and I find that the dry towels do that. So having a moist towel is kind of important. And the other really important thing with color washing is make sure that base coat is dry. Really, really important, because your color that you've already applied can lift if it's not 100% dry. So just be careful with that. And I'm literally just putting it on randomly, but I do overlap because I am going in sections here. I personally just love adding texture, but you don't have to add all of this extra texture by any means. You can put your color wash on and literally wipe it back because your base coat already had quite a bit of texture. So that is why you wanted the low points created with your base. So building up that texture with the base is a huge benefit for color wash technique because you now have that recessed area, that low point in the paint that the new color / color wash has something to sit in. Now, normally I like to do this technique in which I call a ragging technique, and I can get really particular about how my textures are looking on this piece. But because I want to show you guys something a little bit different with what you can do with color washing, I'm not really being that picky. I want a little bit of texture, but I'm not being that infinitesimal about it. I just kind of want to get it on there and create this highlight with the color wash, and I'm really looking forward to showing you what I'm going to do. If you feel that after your first color wash, the contrast isn't quite what you wanted it to be a little bit more denser, no problem at all. Just wait for everything to dry and go ahead and do another color wash. Chalk paint is decorative paint, so it really wants you to play with it and it really wants you to have some fun with it, so sky's the limits. When it comes to giving an aged and authenticity to giving a piece a really, really historical look to it, it's all about layers and random. There is no straight lines, not even with the waxing. So again, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to this color wash, but first, let's take a look at the difference between straight Chateau Gray and all of that blending and color wash difference. So you can see how it's building up that texture and really old world look already. Now I want to do some paint spackling. Other word or term known as fly specking. This is totally optional. You do not have to do this. I absolutely adore it. I love it. I love throwing in all those little extra colors. It creates another layer of texture, and I think it looks so authentic when it comes to a really old nostalgic look. So I'm using a furrow color, which is another green color. I am using graphite, which is a black chalk paint. I'm going to use a primer red, and I'm also going to throw in pure white. And trying to get up nice and close and personal here so you can see that I'm literally just spackling it all across. And from a distance, you don't really see it. This is something that is very, very detailed, that when you're up close and personal with a piece, you can really see that look to it. And as I say, this is a total option. You do not have to do this. I'm just showing you how I do it. So I take paint, I use a toothbrush, I dip it in water, and this allows it to be really, really moist and allows that spackling to be very sporadic. And if I don't like something, no problem. I literally can take a damp cloth, go up to where I've spackled, and just dab it out because I've moistened it down to begin with. I really adore doing this to my pieces. Not all of them, but I find it a really fun technique, as well as it really does give genuine character, and it's so easy to do. What I want to show you with this color wash is another way you can really age your furniture. So what I actually want to do is take away very sporadically some of the color wash on the high points. I'm taking my spray bottle and I'm going around in sections with a moist shop towel, and I'm literally just going to rub off, just in random, some of the color wash that's sitting on the superficial surface. I would like to bring back some of those different tone greens that we use with the blending as well as the base. So again, I'm very, very sporadic about it. I'm kind of just focusing in around the center of the drawers and some of the edges, but not all of it. Again, aged pieces have highlights and lowlights that are so random and all over, and it's never in a straight line. So what I'm doing here is I wanted to give you a really good close-up of what I am trying to create by just taking out some of that color wash on the very top, but not all of it. And I'm going to zoom in really, really closely here so you can see with the low points, you can see the color wash is still there. So now that I've completed all of that, we're going to clear wax seal this project with a lint-free cloth. You can use any cloth as long as it's a lint-free. And you don't need very much. Go around just like everything else we've done so far and just do it in sections. And with the clear wax, it's going to seal your chalk paint. And it's just kind of like adding moisturizer. It just really, really enriches it, and it actually enriches your color a little bit. So be prepared that you'll notice a little bit of a change in color. These waxes generally are dry within a day or so, but it can take up to 30 days till it's completely cured. So especially for those tabletops, just be careful that you're not placing anything too heavy on them, just for that duration time. So now I want to add in just a little bit of a decorative dark wax. And as you can see, I'm literally with a very tiny, tiny amount. I'm just tapping it. And I'm going to go around to a few edges and a few corners, not all of them. And you're going to see why. Once I've placed my dark wax, I usually grab that cloth that I use for the clear wax, and I just rub it back and just kind of give it a better transition, so it just gives a little bit of a worn look. If you don't like it, just grab a little bit of that clear wax and it will actually erase it. Just a quick shot of with and without dark wax. So now I'm actually going to add in a little bit of white wax. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually creating a little bit of a contrast with these waxes. So I want to add in dark wax and white wax. And the reason is it's going to help give the piece this natural age. There's always highlights and lowlights. Again, doing that with the paint color tones, doing that with the wash. Now I'm going to go ahead and do that with the waxes. These chippy brushes are my favorite, and I finally just got a 6-inch. I'm super excited. These are available in the description box below. If you really want to play and blend with chalk paints, I really recommend one of these. So I want to show you a little bit about more with that white wax and what I'm doing here. And I'm just giving a really faded look, a bit of a smoky effect as well. But over time, sun is going to wear down that color, so having that bit of a contrast with a bit of the white as well as a bit of that dark really gives it that authenticity that it's naturally really historic. I like to normally put my dark wax down first, and then I will go around and use my white wax. So where I have placed my dark wax, that's when I'll go around and place my white wax almost directly above it. So you've got the dark tone, then you've got the light tone, so you've got that immediate contrast going. But again, however you'd like to do it, play with it and definitely have fun with it. For the decorative finish waxes, I do recommend using some pretty good waxing brushes. These are my favorite, and they are available in my Amazon store in the description box below. Very durable, extremely helpful, as well as inexpensive. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment in the comment box below, as well as don't forget to subscribe and share this video. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week for another decorative finish with chalk paint tutorial.